In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. They promise it'll get better, but it usually gets worse. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data, so we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, and other industry scandals are designed to keep the money flowing. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing, so they do a virus scan and then wipe out our precious photos. Intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone in my living room, overlooking the Can of Worms in downtown Rochester, New York, this is the Computer Exorcist Podcast. So, we're going to finish our three-parter discussion with Steve the Anecdotal Engineer. Are you ready?
Ready.
I'm going to read this article very quick, and then I want your answer, and then we're calling it a day. How's that?
Yeah, sounds great.
Newatlus.com. Energy harvesting card treats 5th generation 5G cell phone networks as wireless power grids. A team from Georgia Tech has just announced a world first. A 3D printed rectifying antenna the size of a playing card. That can harvest electromagnetic energy from 5G or 5th generation cell phone signals and use it to power devices, turning 5G networks into free wireless power grids. I love this so much, right? They're reclaiming that waste. Because in my personal and professional opinion, 5G, 5th generation cell phone antennas are a huge waste that are going to cook us all. But at least we can get some free power out of it. I'm going to have all these little playing cards all over my house, and I'm going to get free power. Free power from Verizon. It's such a win-win. I don't like Verizon. I want free power. It's such a win-win. Wireless communications put a lot of energy into the air, and over the years we've covered a number of efforts to harvest that energy. Wi-Fi signals, TV broadcasts, radio signals. One device even hopes to increase the life of your smartphone battery by 30% just by harvesting some of the radio waves that the phone itself is spitting out. So it's like reclaiming, regenerative, so to speak. 5G communications offer a whole new opportunity. 5G has been designed for blazing fast and low latency communications. Millimeter wave frequencies were adopted and allow unprecedentedly high, that's a nice word, unprecedentedly high radiated power densities, right? Unknowingly, the architects of 5G have thereby created a wireless power grid, in other words, a power source, capable of powering devices at ranges far exceeding any existing technologies. Because of the density, okay? Energy harvesting has been possible for some time, but hasn't been practical, okay? Because it tends to require large antennas. But now you got this thing the size of a playing card. You have to keep the rectenna. I like that portmanteau. See how they squished that? Right? Rectifier antenna. We said it. Yep. Pointed right at the wave energy source to make it work. Okay. The team solved the issue using a Rotman lens, the spiky-looking plate in the middle of the card. The Rotman lens is a beam-forming tool. Okay, beam-forming is something you'll see on modern routers where the antennas are shaped in a certain way, and that points the beam. When I used to be on real AM radio down at WYSL, they had 4 antennas, and the way they positioned those antennas in their field, in their cornfield, so to speak, in the backyard there, they positioned them in a certain way so that the energy coming out of it, the transmission, would quote-unquote form a beam. So it would point towards certain areas, and it would avoid other areas so as to avoid stepping on the toes of nearby radio stations. How cool is that?
Yes.
So that's beam forming, right? It sucks the energy in and directs it in a certain way. It's kind of like a funnel. How's that?
It's a funnel.
How do you like that?
That's a good way to put it in a simplified fashion.
Love it. So if it's raining and I go outside with a funnel, I'm going to collect more and I'm going to direct it toward that spot, right?
You're going to direct the various raindrops and put them into a more concentrated stream.
And form them. Beautiful.
Yes.
So that's beam forming. So this Rotman lens, it's a lens, right? Just like your glasses, right? Same deal. It absorbs the light and in this case absorbs that energy and forms it into a single large, high-gain, narrow-angle antenna beam into a series of simultaneous antenna beams covering a much wider angle. They allow radar systems, for example, to see targets in multiple directions without having to rotate. Oh, that's cool. So like a fisheye camera lens, same concept, right? This lens allows you to look, or just like your casino cameras, you got those little cameras all over the ceiling in your casino, and they can see everywhere without having to rotate. So it's a fisheye lens, folks. By adding a Rotman lens, the team says it has now got a printable, bendable energy harvesting system that's directionally agnostic. In other words, you can point it in any direction. It's still going to act as a funnel. Okay, That's really cool. Receiving power from any direction and capable of pulling in 21 times as much power. Because it's a lens shape. That's really cool. So now it's possible, it's efficient, it's cost effective, it's possible to get a usable amount of energy, right? So they were saying before it was sort of possible, but it wasn't worthwhile, right? So now it's usable. So it can pull 6 microwatts at 180 meters away from a 5G transmitter. That kind of figure will be more than enough to power a range of small devices, particularly with these Internet of Things, by harvesting energy that would otherwise be wasted. I love that. Or energy that would otherwise start cooking our plants or our bodies or whatever. And you know me so very well. You know me better than a lot of people in my life, and you know that I like saving money.
So you're going to start stitching all these into your coats and your jackets and everything else, and you're just going to start charging your phone off of this jacket that you got.
You know me.
I can see it already.
You know me. I can't waste a thing. Folks, Steve called me up on the way here, and he goes, "Hey, Mark Anthony, I'm bringing some dinner." And I said, "Don't spend too much." So that's that. So that's extremely exciting. We could get rid of batteries, the article says. 5G is going to be everywhere, especially in urban areas. You can replace millions or tens of millions of batteries of wireless sensors, especially for smart city and smart agriculture applications, right? So the danger here is it's going to encourage these filthy slobs out there to create more billions and billions of products to start monitoring us, because now it'll be cheaper for them to make and for them to power. So I don't want that to backfire and encourage them. But in the same way that data overtook voice to become the key revenue generator for telecom providers, they predict that wireless power on demand will become the next big service in the 5G era. Okay, so again, that might encourage them to crank up the electricity and the density that they're pumping out and cooking us with if they think they can make money by selling us wireless power. So that's the danger here, that it's going to encourage these Dr. Moreaus out there who never, ever, ever stop to think whether or not they should do something. But in the short term, it's awesome because you can harvest all of that very, very much wasted energy out there. Final thoughts, Steve the Anecdotal Engineer.
Well, if you have a broad area that's covered in 5G, whatever it could be, inside a city, outside a city, wherever your towers are located for cellular communications, and you happen to have specific use cases that could benefit from not having batteries because it means that their longevity is assured, in that they just need to be a sealed container with this antenna and they don't need a battery, then that means you don't have to worry about...
Because they're getting constant power from the cell tower.
Yes. So in whatever use case where you need 35 years of power, and you expect that because 5G is a particular band, and it might last 35 years, now that's maybe a stretch, but maybe 10 to 15, whatever it is. So there might be use cases out there that they need power, but they don't want to have a battery because they don't want it to run out, and they want to be able to make it either really light or very minimal. And this could give pathways for something to be created with those particular requirements. So, in the true spirit of an engineer, what are your requirements? Let's talk about what we can do with this.
Wow, love it. That's so well put. I love how you finish that off with, in the spirit of engineer, what are the requirements? Right, because that's a great point. Because some pinhead is going to design some product and plop it out there, and then 12 minutes from now, 5G is shut down and replaced with something even worse, and all of a sudden you can't use it, right? There was a situation where I knew a guy who had a Porsche, and it had a SIM card slot on it. Oh, nice. Yeah, you just take your SIM card and shove it in the dashboard, and all of a sudden your car can make calls. That's cool. But that car had a built-in car phone that was 3G technology. And 12 minutes from then, they stopped using 3G technology, so now you can't use it, right? So it's always that. That being said, it sounds like this Rotman lens can pick up almost any kind of electromagnetic wave, as opposed to just 5G in particular.
So 5G is a narrower frequency than some of the other frequencies we've been using, because the narrower the frequency, the faster the time between individual ticks of the wave. So go back to the clock in a CPU, like, if 3G, 4G were like 1 second was their smallest unit of measure, then for 5G maybe it's 10 milliseconds, which is 100 times less.
So you would have to build an antenna specifically for that frequency?
You'd have to have it be the right wavelength to gather the energy, focus the energy, and then harvest that energy.
And as a ham,
yes,
I know that you do have to have different size antennas for different frequencies. Okay.
Yes. So
I'm wondering if they could make a Rotman lens and one of these energy harvesting cards, though, that is an all-purpose, where it can absorb a lot of different waves, right? Or somehow, right? So that it lasts longer and it won't become obsolete.
So you could have different structures in the same thing as long as they don't interfere with each other as a part of their collection wavelengths.
So it's a little multi-antenna in the card.
Could be, but you'd have to do the calculations and take a look at it. So right now you've got 5G. Millimeter wave is on the horizon as being something that gets rolled out commercially. So those would be your two things. Can you build antennas where the interference is non-destructive in this particular lens?
So hence the treadmill, where it's not something that's all-purpose. We'd have to make it for this technology, and then 12 minutes from now when that technology goes obsolete, all of the parts that are compatible with it are put in the garbage. That sounds delicious to someone in Silicon Valley, doesn't it? Oh yeah, we're going to have to put all those products in the garbage and make new ones, huh?
Well, if things keep moving the way they're moving and the rate of progress continues to increase, and we're always trying to push boundaries, then, you got to be first to market, or you got to have a very compelling argument for why people would spend their dollars on your product.
Well, you could always force attack them, like Apple and Verizon, and shame them and tell them to put it in the garbage, and too bad you're not allowed to use it anymore. That usually does it.
Now, again, we go back to the requirements. The engineers looked at that and were like, oh, hey, this is a great idea. We don't want any of our customers to see degraded performance. So once things get to a certain point, it basically just falls off a cliff and we say, yep, it's time to get a new one. But we don't tell them about it. And the not telling them about it is where all the pitfalls are. Because they did look at it and say, hey, the experience is really important to us. And, if you've ever gone to dinner at a nice restaurant and the experience is really important to you, you choose that experience. Whereas in some cases, you might have a company that sells you a product and they don't tell you about this little thing that might degrade the performance past a certain point and make it totally unusable. So, that's that dividing line. As a requirement goes, it was probably a good requirement. It may have even been very well thought out. It's just nobody thought to notify the customer, or nobody thought what that would mean for the product.
There you go. The implications.
Yes.
They didn't think of the implications and the longevity of something.
So now that everybody knows about it, now they're like, okay, well, actually, we as consumers decided that a little degradation is okay because we want to have a phone for more than 2 years.
Yeah.
So there's a broad expanse of people, and when the company develops it to a requirement, it's only as good as the requirement document.
Wow, they build it to that spec.
They build it to whatever spec is. And if you look at a lot of, motor vehicles these days, they do testing at either higher temperatures or at higher actuation values for physical parts, or, at higher vibration they would normally see. to age it prematurely to understand how long it will last.
To see how long it'll last. And I'm fine with that. I always say on this show, I'm okay with honest to goodness wear and tear. I just don't like when a company declares that you're not allowed to use these products anymore.
Yes.
Like the Sonos scandal, where it's too bad for you. You're going to wake up one morning and your Sonos device will not be allowed to function or exist.
So we get into this strange world where if you're writing code, and even if you're in, the Linux or the Unix sphere of things, like take Ubuntu, for example. They tell you that they have, 5 years of support on a particular release.
And support is one thing,
Yep.
but a cloud-controlled device is a whole other thing, and that's what I'm getting at.
That's a great delineation to make. So you say, hey, we will actively support you for 5 years, and then you are on your own, but we won't obsolete it.
That's fine. Being on your own is fine. I'm willing to be on my own, but I don't like waking up one morning and being told that my products are no longer allowed to function.
So again, this is the specifications as they wrote them. That was part of their specifications that, you are no longer able to use this. There was no choice in the matter.
Right.
So again, we come to this question of, same as the battery, what does the consumer actually want? You don't know what the consumer wants because you're bringing it to market before they might know they want it. So how do they make these decisions? And some of these decisions end up being in a disagreement with what the consumer wants.
Yeah. Or in a disagreement with philosophy and ethics and the way God and Beyonce intended. So that concludes our conversation with Steve the Anecdotal Engineer. I am so glad you're here and hope y'all had a great time. And we will talk to you next week. And don't forget, becomeanexorcist.com if you know someone who wants to help protect people from big tech for a living.
It's all